The Wild West is often seen as a land of unending drama, filled with cowboys, saloons, and gunfights. But how much of what we know is accurate? Let's explore 7 of the most persistent myths about the Old West and reveal the surprising truths behind them. Number 1. Settlers were constantly under attack by Native Americans. The idea that settlers were constantly under attack by Native Americans is one of the most enduring myths of the Wild West. While violent conflicts between native tribes and settlers did happen, they were far less frequent than portrayed in popular culture. Many settlers made their way across vast territories without ever encountering hostile Native Americans. The exaggerated narrative of constant clashes oversimplifies the complex and multifaceted relationships that often characterize these interactions. For starters, Native American tribes were not a monolithic group. Different tribes had different approaches to settlers, shaped by their own goals, resources, and experiences with Europeans. Some tribes, like the Comanche and Apache, resisted encroachment aggressively, while others, such as the Mandan and Pawnee, were more likely to engage in trade or assist settlers navigating the harsh terrain. Many Native Americans understood the value of forming strategic alliances, offering guidance, and exchanging goods for mutual benefit. This pragmatism often kept the peace in areas where settlers passed through or temporarily settled. The image of settlers circling the wagons to fend off native raids is also largely a fabrication. Wagon trains were more often organized this way to protect livestock from wandering or theft, rather than to prepare for attack. Forming a defensive circle during an actual raid would have been impractical, as such preparations would take hours, not the immediate moments required in an emergency. In addition, settlers were far more likely to suffer from disease, accidents, or environmental challenges than from conflict with Native Americans. Data from major migration routes, such as the Oregon Trail, show that disease and mishaps accounted for the overwhelming majority of fatalities. Conversely, Native tribes themselves often suffered immensely from violence, displacement, and the introduction of European diseases, which decimated their populations. The myth also ignores the reality that the U.S. government played a significant role in conflicts, often provoking violence through policies of forced relocation and broken treaties. These systemic injustices, rather than individual settlers, were the primary drivers of the tragic violence between Native Americans and expanding settlers. By reducing these narratives to simple good guys versus bad guys tales, the myth erases the complexity of coexistence, negotiation, and mutual reliance that was a significant part of westward expansion. Number 2, the Wild West was overrun with bank-robbing outlaws. The idea that the Wild West was overrun with bank-robbing outlaws is more myth than reality. Despite the tales of infamous figures like Jesse James and the Dalton Gang, the actual number of bank robberies in the American frontier was astonishingly low. Between 1859 and 1900, only 8 bank robberies were recorded across 15 western states, a figure that stands in stark contrast to the popular image of lawlessness. Several factors made bank robberies uncommon. Frontier towns were small, with their most important establishments, such as banks, sheriff's offices, and general stores, located in close proximity, often along the same main street. This layout created a natural deterrent for robbers, as any commotion near the bank could quickly alert local law enforcement or armed citizens. Additionally, the compact construction of frontier banks, with reinforced walls and limited entrances, made breaking in or escaping a risky endeavor. Moreover, banks were not the wealth repositories they are today. Many settlers preferred to carry their wealth in the form of goods, gold, or livestock, or they stored it in private safes. This meant that robbing a bank might yield far less than expected. Outlaws often found more lucrative targets in stagecoaches or trains, which carried cash, gold, and valuable goods across remote and poorly guarded areas. Even when robberies occurred, they were rarely the glamorous, high-stakes events depicted in movies. Many attempts ended in failure, with outlaws either caught, killed, or escaping empty-handed. The notoriety of a few successful gangs, like the James Younger Gang, contributed disproportionately to the myth of frequent bank heists. The myth of rampant bank robberies persists largely because it aligns with the romanticized image of the Wild West as a chaotic and lawless frontier. In reality, bank robberies were exceptions, not the rule, and the Wild West was far more orderly than Hollywood would have us believe. Number 3. Cowboys were exclusively white Americans. The myth that cowboys were exclusively white Americans is a simplification of a much richer and more diverse reality. In the 19th century, the cowboy profession attracted individuals from various ethnic and cultural backgrounds, each contributing uniquely to what we now recognize as cowboy culture. African Americans played a significant role in shaping the cowboy legacy. Following the Civil War, an estimated 25% of cowboys were black, roughly 5,000 men. Many were formerly enslaved individuals who found freedom and new opportunities working on cattle drives and ranches in the West. These cowboys brought with them skills such as cattle wrangling and horse handling, making them invaluable to the cattle industry. Figures like Nat Love, famously known as Deadwood Dick, epitomized the bravery and expertise of black cowboys, earning respect in a field that demanded resilience and independence. The influence of Mexican vaqueros on cowboy culture cannot be overstated. As the original cowhands of North America, vaqueros laid the groundwork for many techniques and traditions adopted by American cowboys. They introduced methods of cattle herding, equipment such as lassos and chaps, and terms like rodeo and buckaroo, derived from the Spanish word vaquero. Their unique style of riding and dress heavily influenced what is now considered quintessential cowboy attire, including the wide-brimmed hats and protective leather gear. This cultural exchange highlights the strong ties between Mexican traditions and cowboy practices. Native Americans also played a vital role in the cowboy workforce. Many tribes adapted to ranching life, blending their equestrian heritage with the demands of cattle herding. Their deep knowledge of the land, weather patterns, and animal behavior made them invaluable on the range. Tribes such as the Cherokee, Comanche, and Lakota often worked alongside settlers, contributing their expertise in survival and horsemanship. Women were another overlooked group in cowboy culture. Although societal norms often confined women to domestic roles, many broke these barriers, working as ranchers, wranglers, and even rodeo stars. Figures like Calamity Jane and Annie Oakley became legends in their own right, demonstrating that cowboy life was not limited to men. Women's involvement underscored the adaptability and inclusivity of cowboy work, challenging traditional gender roles of the era. The diversity of cowboys reflects the broader narrative of the West as a meeting ground for different cultures and peoples. African Americans, Mexicans, Native Americans, and women all played indispensable roles in shaping the identity of the American cowboy, far from the exclusively white, male figure popularized by Hollywood. This multicultural reality redefines the cowboy legacy as one of collaboration, resilience, and shared heritage. Number 4. The West was a gun-toting, lawless land. Contrary to the popular image of the Wild West as a chaotic, gun-slinging frontier, many towns implemented strict firearm regulations to maintain order. For instance, Dodge City, Kansas, established ordinances in the late 1870s prohibiting the carrying of firearms within city limits. Similarly, Tombstone, Arizona, enforced laws requiring visitors to surrender their weapons upon entering town. These measures aimed to reduce violence and promote a sense of security among residents and visitors. The infamous gunfight at the OK Corral in 1881 exemplifies the enforcement of such laws. The confrontation arose when lawmen attempted to disarm a group defying Tombstone's firearm restrictions, underscoring the seriousness with which these regulations were upheld. Beyond legal measures, the practicalities of daily life influenced firearm use. Early revolvers, such as the Colt single-action Army, were prone to malfunctions and had limited accuracy, making them less reliable for self-defense. Consequently, many individuals preferred rifles and shotguns for hunting and protection, reserving handguns as secondary options. The portrayal of the West as a lawless land is further challenged by crime statistics from the era. Research indicates that homicide rates in frontier towns were not significantly higher than those in eastern cities of the same period. In some cases, they were even lower, suggesting that the West was not the anarchic region often depicted in popular culture. Additionally, the establishment of local law enforcement agencies, such as sheriffs and marshals, played a crucial role in maintaining order. These officials enforced laws, mediated disputes, and organized posses to apprehend criminals, contributing to a structured legal system. The myth of a gun-toting, lawless West is largely a construct of dime novels and early Hollywood films, which dramatized and exaggerated events to captivate audiences. In reality, many Western communities prioritize safety and order, implementing regulations and relying on law enforcement to create stable environments. Understanding the true nature of the American West requires recognizing the balance between the rugged individualism, often celebrated in folklore, and the communal efforts to establish law and order. This nuanced perspective reveals a society striving for stability amidst the challenges of frontier life. Number 5. Every cowboy wore a classic cowboy hat. In the mid-19th century, the American frontier was a melting pot of cultures, and this diversity was reflected in the headwear of its inhabitants. Contrary to the popular image of every cowboy donning a classic Stetson, a variety of hats were worn, each serving practical purposes and influenced by different traditions. The bowler hat, also known as the derby, was particularly prevalent among cowboys and townsfolk. Its sturdy construction and snug fit made it ideal for horseback riding, as it was less likely to be dislodged by wind or low-hanging branches. This practicality led to its widespread adoption across the West. Mexican vaqueros, the original cowboys, often wore sombreros with wide brims and high crowns, providing excellent protection from the sun. This design influenced American cowboys, especially in the Southwest, who adopted similar styles to shield themselves from harsh sunlight. Civil War veterans migrating westward brought with them military headgear, such as kepis and slouch hats. These hats were repurposed for frontier life, offering familiarity and functionality to their wearers. The Boss of the Plains, introduced by John B. Stetson in 1865, was a versatile hat made from high-quality felt, featuring a straight brim and rounded crown. Its durability and practicality made it popular among cowboys, but it was not the ubiquitous symbol it is today. Over time, the design evolved, with wearers customizing the brim and crown to suit their needs, leading to the variety of styles associated with the classic cowboy hat. Photographic evidence from the era shows a wide array of headwear among cowboys and settlers, including flat-brimmed hats, top hats, and even military caps. This diversity highlights the individuality and practicality of frontier inhabitants, who chose their hats based on personal preference, availability, and the demands of their environment. In summary, the headwear of the Old West was as varied as its population. The classic cowboy hat, while iconic today, was just one of many styles that cowboys and settlers wore, each chosen for its practicality and suitability to the wearer's needs. Number 6. The Pony Express was a long-running success. The Pony Express was a daring and ambitious mail delivery service designed to bridge the communication gap between the eastern United States and California during a critical period of westward expansion. Operating from April 1860 to October 1861, it spanned nearly 2,000 miles, crossing some of the most challenging terrains of the American frontier, including deserts, mountains, and plains. Riders faced extreme conditions, from scorching heat to freezing temperatures, as they carried mail pouches weighing around 20 pounds while riding at breakneck speeds. The operation was dependent on a network of approximately 190 stations spaced 10 to 15 miles apart, where fresh horses and provisions awaited riders. These riders, often young men weighing less than 125 pounds to minimize the load, became legends for their bravery. They typically covered distances of 75 to 100 miles before handing off the mail to the next rider. Famous participants, like Buffalo Bill Cody, helped solidify the Pony Express's legendary status. Financially, the Pony Express was unsustainable from the start. Its founders, Russell, Majors, and Waddell, intended it as a temporary measure to secure a government mail contract. But the costs of maintaining the stations, horses, and personnel were astronomical. The service charged $5 per half ounce of mail, a hefty fee at the time, yet this was insufficient to offset the operational expenses. Additionally, the dangers of the route, hostile encounters, severe weather, and logistical challenges added to its inefficiency. The advent of the transcontinental telegraph in October 1861 marked the end of the Pony Express. The telegraph could transmit messages instantly, making it far superior to even the fastest horseback riders. Although the Pony Express was a commercial failure, losing an estimated $200,000, its legacy endures as a symbol of innovation and determination during the westward expansion. The romanticized image of the Pony Express overshadows its impracticalities and challenges. It was not the first attempt at cross-country mail delivery. Other services had used stagecoaches, albeit at slower speeds. The Pony Express's real achievement lies in its demonstration of the possibility of rapid communication over long distances in a pre-telegraph era. Despite its brief operation, it remains one of the most iconic representations of the American frontier, immortalized in stories, stamps, and folklore. Number 7. Gambling was just a casual pastime. Gambling in the Old West was not the spontaneous and chaotic activity often depicted in movies, but a structured and professional pursuit for many individuals. For some, gambling was a full-time occupation requiring significant skill, strategy, and a keen understanding of human behavior. Professional gamblers, often referred to as sportsmen, occupied a unique and respected position in Western society, despite the inherent risks and stigma associated with their trade. Many saloons and gambling halls were central to the social and economic fabric of frontier towns. These establishments were meticulously organized spaces where patrons gathered not only to gamble, but to socialize and conduct business. Unlike the rowdy, unregulated games often portrayed in Hollywood, these venues operated under strict rules. Dealers and gamblers alike followed an unwritten code of conduct, ensuring that games were fair, or at least appeared to be. Some venues even employed security or house dealers to maintain order and protect players and the establishment's reputation. Popular games included faro, poker, Monte, and Chuck-a-Luck. Faro in particular was a favorite in the West due to its fast pace and straightforward rules. This game, introduced by French immigrants, was often the centerpiece of gambling halls. Professional gamblers specialized in these games, developing reputations for their skill and their ability to outsmart opponents. These individuals were not simply lucky. They often relied on mathematics, probability, and an acute ability to read body language. A gambler's success depended on sharp wit and strategic thinking, as well as the ability to bluff convincingly. High-stakes games attracted not only locals, but also travelers and adventurers who sought to test their fortunes. Professional gamblers frequently traveled from town to town, chasing lucrative opportunities and participating in regional tournaments. This transient lifestyle added an air of mystique to their profession, but also came with risks. Cheating was a constant threat, and disputes over games could escalate into violence. Many professional gamblers carried weapons for self-defense, not to intimidate opponents, but to ensure their safety in case of confrontations. Women were also part of the gambling scene, though their participation was often overlooked. Some women owned or operated gambling establishments, while others worked as professional players, defying societal norms of the time. Their presence highlighted the inclusive nature of gambling, which offered opportunities for anyone with skill and determination. Gambling in the Old West was deeply integrated into the culture of the frontier, providing both entertainment and economic benefits to growing towns. Its structured nature, professional players, and role in community life contrast sharply with the romanticized chaos seen in popular Western films. This nuanced reality demonstrates how gambling was more than a pastime. It was a livelihood and a critical part of Old West society.